Hi Louisville, this is Lilius Pettit Scott. I work for the Jefferson County Soil and Water Conservation District. I work with growers who are growing produce all over the county and help them do it in a way that protects our water and soil resources. And I wanted to talk to you about rainwater harvesting and how that can be something you can do at home to save some money, to protect and improve our water ways here in Louisville and in Jefferson County, our streams and rivers and creeks, and to also grow healthier plants. I have a rain barrel here that's attached to a downspout on my garage at home, and I will show you a little bit about this rain barrel setup. It's not the only option that you have. There are many options out there. I'll tell you why I like this kind, and then I will share a little bit of information with you about why harvesting rainwater is a great way to do your part in protecting our environment and a great way to save some money at home. So I have this rain barrel here that is connected to the downspout on my garage, which is not attached to my house. My garage sits back in my yard, and the closest water faucet is about 100 feet away. So this was a great way for me to be able to have water back here to water plants, and also to catch all the water, or some of the water that's coming off of the roof of the garage, and divert it from going onto the driveway and going into our yard. And I'll talk a little bit more about why that's important later in this video. This is called a closed system rain barrel. So this is a 55 gallon plastic food grade drum, and it's been fitted with a rain barrel kit that has this hose here, this hose over here, and there's a downspout at the bottom of the rain barrel, so I can turn it on, or not a downspout, a faucet, so I can turn it on and get water out of it. It's closed system because there's no openings that are just open to any bugs getting in there or debris getting in there. So mosquitoes can't get in this rain barrel. I know that's something that a lot of people are concerned about when they set up rain barrels. There is a tight fitting gasket that connects this hose over here to the downspout, and another tight fitting gasket. So the water comes down the downspout, it gets caught in the cup that's inside and goes through the hose here into the barrel over here, and then gets filled. And then when the barrel is full, that cup that's inside the downspout actually has a hole in the center, and the water can pass right through it. So when the barrel's full, instead of the water kind of spilling out of the hose or on the top of the barrel, which can happen with ones where you have to cut the downspout, this one actually just continues, the water just continues down through the downspout and onto the garden space below where I've diverted the water. So it doesn't overflow when and cause problems like that when the barrel is full. These kits are available on rainbarreldepot.com if you like them, and the Conservation District actually each year does an order for these kits with barrels, and so if you're interested in getting one, you can email me at urbanagconservationist@gmail.com. Put the email here at the bottom of the screen and just let me know that you're interested. Give me your email and phone number, and I can put you on the wait list so that when we get more barrels and we can do another order, I can let you know and you can order your own if you'd like. So now I'm going to fill up my watering can and just show you how this works. You can just turn on simply, I have a little hose that's attached here so I can access it since it's a little bit, there's a lot of plants back here. And then I just turn it on and out comes the water. And once I get enough in here, turn off the faucet, set my hose back up, and I can water my plants. So this rain barrel allows me to capture 55 gallons of water at a time. And our average rain event here in Louisville is about a half an inch every time it rains. And on 1,000 square feet, you can capture 600 gallons of water with a 1-inch rain. So if you have a 1/2 inch, you can capture 300 gallons of water. And my garage is about 30 feet by 30 feet, so about 900 square feet. And about half of that is what I'm capturing water on. It equates to about 75 to 80 gallons of water that I can collect every time it rains. So I can fill this rain barrel up every time it rains. And I have another downspout on the other side. If I wanted to add another barrel, I could do that. I could also connect another barrel to this so that I could capture that extra water, because sometimes it rains 2 inches at one time. And so, you can catch extra water if you connect systems or have a bigger barrel. Okay, so let's talk about water and why it's important to conserve water. I think a lot of people that live in Kentucky would not consider us to have an issue in terms of getting access to water. We live in a pretty water-rich state. We don't have to worry about drought or getting access to water for irrigating our farms and things like that. But we only have about 2% of fresh water on the planet. And so we want to keep as much of that fresh water available to us to drink as possible. So here's an image of what the water cycle looks like in an urban environment. And the rain falls down here, and it can fall on a couple of different surfaces. It can fall on a green surface where there's soil, and it can also fall on a concrete or impermeable surface. And when ideally we want most of the fresh water to fall on this green surface. And that way the water gets absorbed into the land. It's filtered by the soil. Anything that needs to be filtered out of it, it goes into the soil. And then it actually goes back into the groundwater, and we can draw from the groundwater for drinking and also for irrigating our farms. Some of that groundwater is going to flow eventually to a river, stream, or lake, which is the endpoint for the whole watershed. So let's say this is the whole watershed. All of the water in this watershed is going to eventually flow to this river. And in Louisville, this river is going to represent the Ohio River. And so when the water flows onto the concrete, it's going to go into the storm drain and go directly into the waterway. But while it's traveling across that concrete, it's picking up everything that's on the concrete, any sort of contaminants, and those are not getting filtered out through the soil, and they're going directly into the waterway. And in our case, the Ohio River is where the Louisville Water Company pulls water from for our drinking water. It also happens to be the dirtiest river in the country. So we have our fresh drinking water being pulled out. It's being treated here in this wastewater treatment plant, and then it's going back to our homes to drink. So if we can capture a lot of the water at our homes that gets that's running off of our roofs and actually direct it onto the soil, then it will get filtered and it will go into the groundwater, and some of it will go into the river, which will be cleaner than if it was coming into the storm drain, and some of it will just stay in the groundwater as a resource. If you have a downspout on your home that looks like it's connected, it goes straight into the ground, you can also disconnect that, contact MSD for their disconnection program, downspout disconnection program, and you can simply, they will pay you to disconnect that downspout to go and flow out into your yard instead of down to the ground. Same if you have a downspout that flows maybe to a hose out onto the street, you can just redirect that back onto your yard, and it will filter the water and provide much better water quality. So if you live within the Watterson Expressway of Louisville, you have what's called probably your sewer line is within our combined sewer system. And what that means is that both storm water and sewage water end up in the same pipe at one point. On a normal day when it's not raining, the sewage from our toilets and our sinks and our showers are going through the sewer, and they're flowing through a pipe that has a flap at the end and a little tiny wall. The water hits that wall and then goes into the pipe that takes it to the Louisville Water Company and gets treated. And that's on a normal day. When it rains, all of the water from our sewage drains that you see, our storm drains that you see on your street, on the corners where water is flowing and eventually disappears, gets combined into that same pipe, and the volume increases. And so as that water's flowing to the gate, to that flap, and that little wall, it's gonna go over that wall and actually out of that flap. This is gonna open and it's gonna go right into our streams and creeks and waterways. So now we have fresh water from the rain mixed with sewage water that ends up in our creeks and streams and rivers. If you've ever been over to Big Rock Park, you might have seen a sign that says that you shouldn't wade or swim in the creek after it's rained, and that's because there is sewage water in that waterway. It's called a CSO, a combined sewage overflow, that happens, and we have 111 sites within our sewer system where that happens. And on average, those CSO events happen 30 times a year. So 30 times a year, rainwater is getting mixed with sewage water and ending up in our waterways. So how can we fix that? One of the things that's happening is that MSD is building some basins that will catch that water and hold on to it, so that when it's finished raining, that water can slowly be released back into the sewage line and it won't cause that overflow. But that's not fixing the whole system. We still have those overflow problems. So what we can do as citizens of Louisville is we can reduce the amount of water that enters into that system during a rain event. And we can do that by catching that water that's flowing off of our roofs and stopping it from flowing into the storm drain and causing those overflows. Now, I know we've all probably heard and talked about pollution at one point, and pollution in water, air, soil, different aspects of our environment. Our waterways get polluted, obviously, when that sewage water enters them. And so that's one thing that when we can reduce that, we're improving the water quality. Why is that important? So we have an ecosystem in which we live, and each member of that ecosystem is important to create a balance. And so when the quality of the water is poor in those rivers and streams, not only is there potential of our human bodies getting contaminated with that pollution if we're swimming in that water, if we're eating fish out of that water, we also are creating a poor living environment for the creatures that live in that stream, for the fish that are swimming in that stream, and when they are unable to thrive in that stream, then that is going to kickstart an entire system that begins to fail. And so we really want to create healthy waterways so that the balance in our ecosystem is not off. So sewage is one pollutant that we have in our waters here in Jefferson County. Other things that can end up in our water come from water rushing over sidewalks and streets and driveways. So think about anything and everything you've ever seen or ever spilled on a parking lot, on a sidewalk. That includes, your drinks that you might have, but it also includes the leak in your oil on your car that's leaking out onto the road as you're driving. It includes when you cleaned your car and you washed it in your driveway, all of that water and all of that dirt and all of that whatever was stuck to your car is now washing into our waterways. So really anything that is on those, we call them impermeable surfaces where water can't absorb. So concrete, asphalt, roof, shingles, those, when the water's passing over it, it's picking up everything that it passes, or most of it. So if we can, again, reduce the amount of water that's moving over those surfaces and capture it and absorb it into the ground, then that water can actually be filtered through the soil, which acts as an amazing filter, and re-enter our groundwater. Then all of those things are pollutants in our water. But I want to share with you actually what the number one pollutant is in our waterways in the state of Kentucky. And that is sediment or soil. And that sediment gets into our waterways, one, when water is rushing over impermeable surfaces, like I explained before, but also when there's so much water that enters a stream or creek that it's too much for that creek to handle, and it starts to wash away the sides of that creek. It's rushing through that waterway, and it's actually taking the sides of that creek with it. And that soil ends up in the waterway, and what happens is that it builds up, so the bottom of the stream is now a little bit higher, and the stream is shallower, which means that the water is warming up. So it's warmer because there's less water, it's closer to the sun. And so that's going to create a warmer environment, which means that some of those fish and life that live in that water are actually not going to be able to live in it. And it's also creating there are a lot of other things. It's reducing the amount of oxygen that's available to those critters and other things. So we really want to keep that soil on the land. We really want to keep it on the banks of our streams so that they're not collapsing, because eventually what happens is that maybe your house is located 20 yards from a stream bank, and as that stream erodes, the area where your house is can be at risk if that stream bank was to totally collapse and give way. So we really want to keep those streams intact, and so by reducing the amount of water that enters that system, we can do that. The last thing I want to share about capturing and harvesting rainwater is about our own personal use of water as people who live on this earth. So if you think about how much water you use at home and the different tasks that you do if you live in a standalone household, you might think that the most water that you use is when you take showers. Or maybe you think that you use the most water when you are doing laundry. And actually, 65% of water use in general is from single family and multifamily households, with 55% being single family households, so a standalone home. At that home, 50% of the water that is used by those folks that live in that house is used for outdoor irrigation. That compares to 14%, which is used to flush your toilets, about 9% for showers, about 12% for laundry. So we are using a ton of water to water our lawns. And honestly, probably overwatering our lawns, which is what happens at most homes. So if you can capture rainwater, you can use it to water your lawn, and you can reduce drastically the amount of water that you're using from the treated water system. And what that ends up meaning is that you can save some money, which is a great thing to be able to do. These barrels are not going to provide enough pressure to connect water to a overhead sprinkler that you would turn on and water your lawn, unless you attach a pump to them, which you can absolutely do. But if you use this barrel by itself in a low gravity type situation, you are able, if you can have the barrel 2 feet off the ground, to push enough water through like a soaker hose for about 20 to 30 feet. So it could absolutely water a strip of lawn. It could water a garden bed that's on the ground. And of course you can just turn on the faucet at the bottom and fill up a watering can, and that would allow you to water. There are many systems that you can set up with bigger barrels, with more pressure, that would allow you to capture all of the water you needed to water your lawn. And that can happen with, some really good resources and some really good research. But at a very basic level, if you wanted to set up a barrel to water, maybe you have some potted plants, maybe you have some plants that you just put in the ground that need water that you're adding to your landscape, you can absolutely supplement your outdoor watering usage by just using this rain barrel to do the watering for those plants. If you're filling up a water can and you go and water things, fill it up from your rain barrel instead of filling it up from your faucet. It will save you a lot of water. Well, I hope this was helpful. I hope it's inspired you to think about harvesting rainwater at your home or maybe at your community garden space. All you need really is a roof, is this a surface area that water is going to land on when it rains, a downspout and gutter to direct that water, and a rain barrel and hose to connect it so that you can capture that water. If you are interested in learning more about rainwater harvesting, you can check out our website at jeffcd.org, and you can contact me at urbanagconservationist@gmail.com, and I'd love to talk to you more about how you can conserve water at your home here in Louisville, Kentucky. I hope you all are staying safe and staying healthy. Have a great rest of your week.